Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Corner HVAC. Today I want to talk to you a little bit about furnaces. You know, that time may come when you do have to purchase a new furnace for your home. There's so many choices out there, it's hard to make those decisions. So that's why I want to try to help a little bit alongside your local contractor to decide what's right for your house. Now, with all these choices out there, there's all kinds of opinions here and there. Techs have some, homeowners have some, and everything else. I've actually talked a little bit here recently on a couple of videos that I've done with some of the comments, people out there that have been watching, a little bit about their opinions. Now, I understand that everybody is entitled to their own opinion, just the same as I am. That's why I have a YouTube channel. Now, other people can have other opinions and do things in a different fashion, and that's perfectly okay, and it doesn't bother me whatsoever. Really, it doesn't bother me at all. The fact is that there's so many different areas out there and so many different ways of doing things that there aren't too many right answers. It's a matter of what's right for your home. So really, it comes down to your area. What does everybody in your area use, and what's the most popular, what's the most convenient, economical for your choice? Now, in my area, we use a lot of the same style of furnaces. There's a little bit different versions of efficiencies and things like that, but we use 90% furnaces. Now, again, I know not every area is the same. A lot of people do use 80%ers. Now, an 80% furnace still does the job. Can it heat your house? Of course, just the same as what a 90%er can, just the 90%er does it a little more efficiently. Now, last video I did about this kind of thing, I got a lot of backlash from other people from other areas. Again, I understand that every area is different. There's a few areas up north from where I'm at that they do a lot of 80% furnaces. Personally, I don't understand why. I don't see the point in it. My biggest thing is I don't understand all the controversy on it. My opinions are my opinions, just like I said before. But today I'm going to list some of those opinions and why I believe that way, that a 90% furnace is superior to an 80%. Now, we are just talking strictly about gas furnaces, natural gas, propane. It doesn't matter what fuel source it's on, in my opinion, if it's a gas furnace, as far as which is the correct choice to go with, a 90% or an 80%. Now, that's what everybody calls them. So first thing, we have to get that out of the way. An 80% furnace, a lot of them are actually 82 or 83, 84% efficient nowadays. Just the same as what we call a 90 plus efficient furnace is most of them are usually 95, 96, 98, somewhere in that range. To me personally, once you get over that 90%, I think you have a high efficiency, or I know you have a high efficiency furnace. And an 80%er, in my opinion, most of the 80%ers are the same. Now, there are differences. You can move to two-stage gas valves and two-stage inducers and variable speed blowers, which most all the furnaces have now when you purchase a new one. So there are a lot of variations there. But as far as the actual efficiency, the AFUE rate, which I do have some other videos out there if you'd like a little bit better explanation of what the efficiencies actually mean. But the annual fuel utilization efficiency is the number of how efficient it is. The higher the number, the more you're going to save on your utility bill. So let's start with the 80%ers, why I'm not a big fan. And one of my big things is noise level. With the noise level, an 80% furnace is louder. Nobody can argue me that fact. You can set two furnaces side by side. Let's call them 80,000 BTU furnaces, or whatever size that you want them to be, because a lot of times those 80s do actually have to be a little bit bigger than what a 90 is. But you put those two furnaces side by side and you let them run, the 80%er will obviously be louder. It has an open combustion burner box on it, so at that point the doors are usually louvered, so you hear all the noise of the inducer, the flames, and everything that's going on inside that furnace. 90%er usually has a sealed combustion box, so at that point everything is tucked away and it is much quieter. A lot of the new modern 90 plus efficient furnaces actually have a sealed combustion chamber, which means that the one section of the furnace is completely airtight and draws its combustion air from outside. So at that point, the whole cabinet is sealed with gaskets, so it dampens the noise quite a bit. If you do have a 90% furnace, I challenge you to go out and listen to it run and then take the door off of it and see what the noise level is. There's a big difference there. Now, if you run that 90%er with the door off of it, that'd be about the equivalent to what an 80% furnace is going to sound like when it's running in your house. Now, some people may not care about this. If your furnace is in the basement or a cellar or out in the garage or something like that, where it's not going to be loud right there where you're at, or you're never going to hear it or notice anything, it's not going to make any difference. Now, with a lot of people, at least in our area, some of these furnaces are in furnace closets on the main floor, or they're in a utility room or something like that. Or maybe it's a finished basement where the furnace sits and they have a family room down there. I've seen game rooms, I've seen home theater rooms, all kinds of things like that. That noise level makes a difference. Again, most all the modern furnaces do have variable speed blowers in them, so that's quieted them down a lot as far as air noise, but that does nothing for the combustion noise. So you have that noise level there. So I think that's something to think about. And then on the same track of that open combustion box, where those burners are actually at and the louvered doors to get its combustion air in, it draws air from inside the house and into the burner. Now, if that furnace is located anywhere where there's any kind of dust or dander or hair or anything like that, that all gets drawn in. The furnace will actually draw air into the furnace naturally because there's a fire going and it's got an inducer in there drawing that air into the burners for combustion and then out the flue pipe. So when it does that, especially if that thing is in a utility room or anywhere close to a clothes dryer or anything like that, wreaks havoc on that flame sensor. That flame sensor gets dirty, then it sits in front of the flame, everything gets a carbon buildup on it, and those flame sensors have to be cleaned more often. Same as a lot of people don't realize any kind of hairsprays, things like that are horrible for flame sensors. If you're in a hair salon, anything like that, you definitely don't want an 80% furnace. That hairspray loves to stick on those flame sensors, builds the carbon buildup, and then at that point the furnace will shut down. It can't re-establish a flame, so it stops and you have to reset it, clean the flame sensor, or call somebody, whatever may be. So, that's another issue I see. The other thing is drawing combustion air from inside the house. I don't really like that fact. I like the idea of drawing combustion air from outside. It's clean air from outside, so there's less debris, dust, and things like that in it, especially if the flue pipe goes out the roof or even a sidewall if your furnace is in the basement. So it brings in clean, fresh air from outside, which also prevents the furnace from putting in negative pressure of any sorts on the house, at least from the combustion side of it. Now, you could always have pressure issues from the blower, poor ductwork, things like that. But as far as the burner section, enclosed burner box that draws its fresh air or combustion air from outside will not create a negative pressure of any kind on your house. But with the 80%ers, they draw air from the room that they're in. That's the air that they're burning. So at that point, you are open to the combustion box right there. One of the other things is you can look at just the efficiency factor. I mean, it's in the name of the furnace. A 90% furnace or an 80% furnace. If it's a 90% furnace, you feed it $1, it gives you 90 cents worth of heat, and only 10 cents goes up the flue pipe. If you have an 80% furnace, you feed it $1, it gives you 80 cents worth of heat and puts 20 cents of heat up the flue pipe. Any of that heat that escapes out the flue pipe is all waste. It is going to nothing. You are just throwing dollar bills out your window is all you're doing. So obviously the efficiency factor is there. I hear the fact that people say that they will never recoup the cost of a 90% furnace over an 80% furnace. If that's the case, I don't understand what these people are charging for furnaces, because just because it's a 90% furnace does not necessarily make it that much more valuable as far as money cost than an 80% furnace. In our area, there's not a huge difference. There's a little bit. Sometimes you have to redo the pipes because they do use PVC pipes rather than metal. You cannot typically vent them directly into a brick and mortar chimney and things like that. So there's a little bit of added cost there, but not much. You would recoup that extremely quickly. Again, feed it $1, you get 90 cents back. You feed it $1, you get 80 cents of heat back. It'll recoup itself pretty quick, because everybody knows that when we're talking about our utility bills, we are no longer dealing with just dollars a month. Their utility bills are high everywhere. I don't care where you're at. My area right now, my electric bill alone has gone up to 14 cents a kilowatt. That's insane to me. Fuel prices are not much better. Hopefully they are suspected to get a little bit better soon, but I don't know when that time's going to come. So we have to watch out for every penny that we are spending on our utilities. Starting with a high efficiency gas furnace would be a big thing. Another one of the concerns that I always hear are more repairs and breakdowns. I don't know where the people are getting this at. It doesn't make sense to me whatsoever. There's not really more parts on there, because that's what everybody always says is, oh, there's more parts, so there's more failure. Really, about the only extra part on there is a secondary heat exchanger, and when you do add a secondary heat exchanger, then it adds a drain trap in the drain fittings, because a high efficiency furnace does condensate when it runs. So at that point, you do have drainage, you got water coming out, and it's got to go somewhere. Most everybody has a drain in their house, so it's not hard to get rid of that water. People say that that secondary heat exchanger fails faster than what a normal 80% heat exchanger does. That's absolute crap. For one, there's no comparison because an 80%er does not have a secondary heat exchanger, so there's not a comparison there at all. The other factor is the heat exchanger on an 80% furnace is actually pretty close to the same heat exchanger as a 90% furnace. They just add the secondary to it, add the secondary to the primary, and it gives it basically two heat exchangers in one. The other thing people need to understand with these heat exchangers is everyone should look at the heat exchanger as an extension of the flue pipe. That's all a heat exchanger is. The fire is burning into the entrance of the heat exchanger. The flue gases go through there. As the flue gases go through the heat exchanger, the blower blows across the outside of that heat exchanger, picks up the heat, and moves it into the house. And then any remaining heat or exhaust that is in that heat exchanger gets pushed out into the inducer and out the flue pipe out of the house. So really, all that is because it does have to be a sealed circuit. Really, all it is an extension of the flue pipe. There's not really any fancy magic that anybody talks about there. Now, there are some furnaces out there, actually not anymore. There were. Carrier actually produced some furnaces. I know I'll catch a lot of flack and probably get a lot of hate mail on this one because a lot of people are obsessed with Carrier. And I think they've drank the Kool-Aid they've drank all the Kool-Aid. That's just what it is. These Carrier dealers out there, that Carrier did have an issue with furnaces. Most of them manufactured in the 90s and early 2000s. The style of secondary heat exchanger they had did get pinhole leaks in it. Now, everybody remembers that because everybody wants to talk about Carrier being so great and out there all over the place all the time. Now, I will agree that Carrier's been out there longer than most of them, or at least in the air conditioning world, because Carrier did invent the first central air conditioner. That's true. But that doesn't necessarily mean that they make the best furnace. Now, Lennox actually has one of the longest furnace manufacturing history out there, but I don't necessarily say that Lennox is the best one either. I do like Lennox furnaces. I like a lot of different furnaces. Rheem makes a decent one. Amana makes a good one. A Goodman is a good furnace. There's a lot of them out there, but they all have their weird little quirks and problems. Now, back to that Carrier we were talking about. Some of the Carrier 90%ers, because of the style of secondary heat exchanger they had, they were prone to fail. They get little rust spots in them, and they start getting pinholes. Once they get pinholes, then water starts leaking out. You get rust, you get carbon. All of a sudden, the heat exchanger is plugged, and now you're producing carbon monoxide. That's a very bad thing. It was an extremely poor design, and I believe most of the modern Carriers have gotten away from that design, but they made a lot of them. So a lot of people drank the Kool-Aid, and a lot of people bought those furnaces from the Kool-Aid drinkers and put those furnaces in, and they failed, and then all of a sudden 90%ers had a bad rap. Again, I don't quite understand this bad rap that 90%ers have. I don't really have anything negative towards a 90 that an 80 doesn't have, because the fact is all furnaces can break down. I don't care what efficiency it is. Everybody goes on about more parts, but there aren't really more parts. You have an inducer, you have a heat exchanger, you have a pressure switches, thermal limits, HSI, flame sensor, blower motor. Most all those parts are the same style of parts in both furnaces, high efficiency or low efficiency. So I don't really understand the fight of there's more parts, more breakdowns, all kinds of stuff like that. People also say that the longevity is not the same on a 90% furnace as an 80% furnace, and I don't understand that one at all because there's not really much to compare there unless you go with, again, those old style statistics where they said, well, those 90%ers back in the 90s, they all rusted out and quit. Hey, could have happened. It did happen. I've seen a lot of them. But that doesn't mean all 90%ers are junk. Just because, if you look at vehicles, just because one vehicle had a poor run on transmission manufacturing back 40 years ago, does that mean they still make poor quality transmissions now? No, they had a bad run. Yes, it's a bad thing. Did they lose a lot of business? Did a lot of people quit buying that make and model? Probably. But things improve, things get better, and they figure out what they did wrong and they change it. Now, I'm not trying to defend Carrier whatsoever, because if you've seen any of my other videos, I do knock the Carrier guys a little bit. I just don't understand that Kool-Aid drinking kind of mentality, to be honest with you. So as far as that goes, you've got the efficiency value, you've got the noise value, you have the longevity of the furnace, because they're both about the same. And hate to break it to everybody out there that wants to yell that one, life expectancy in the United States right now is 15 to 20 years, regardless if it's an 80 or 90% efficient furnace. There's no fact out there saying that 90% furnaces last less of time than 80% furnaces. That's not a real thing. That's something somebody made up. Now, I get it. Everybody has their opinions and everybody has their reasoning. Different areas, as I said before, use different furnaces. In my area, most all the contractors usually typically go with 90% furnaces. 80% furnaces have their place. I've seen in our area, they're used a lot of times in efficiency apartments, very small houses, garages, barns, sheds, different things like that. They have their place. Now, I understand some of the concerns that a lot of people, especially in the bigger cities, because I am in more of a rural area, some of the bigger cities, they like 80% furnaces because they're quick, easy change outs. That is true. They are more profitable for the contractor because they're quick, easy in and out. You rehook to the old flue pipe. There's no drain to have to worry about. So then there's no drain or there's no flue pipes to run new pipes with or anything like that. So it's a quick, easy change out. They are more profitable. So any of the guys that are out there yelling and telling everybody that they shouldn't buy 90% or high efficiency furnaces because of the profitability factor, I don't really think you're treating your customers right. I don't mean to be offensive, but that's my opinion. So I think that we need to look at all the factors out there on what's better and what's not. What is better long term? Efficiency obviously is going to be a better factor. Replacement parts for a 90% furnace don't typically cost more than replacement parts on an 80% furnace. Inducers, that's a big part on there. The price difference is about the same. Sometimes 80%ers are actually more expensive on their repair parts than what 90s are. So I can fight back the opposite direction of what everybody wants to say. There's a lot of differences out there, but to me, the choice is clear. I don't really understand the debate that we have on it or why we have the debate. I get it. There's places that they do work and there's reasons people use them. And that's what it is. That's just part of the world. So if you're a big believer in 80% furnaces, hey, I applaud you for selling furnaces. I applaud you for voicing your opinion. But that's what I'm doing here. So if you want to knock me for my opinions, hey, go for it. I got broad shoulders. I'm not really afraid of the hate mail and things like that. So if you don't agree with me, that's fine. It's not our opinions aren't the same in every area and for everyone. But those are my opinions, and this is my channel, and I'm going to share them the way that I like. So if you like today's video, be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Be sure to share it with all your friends and check out the other videos on the channel. Also, I want to let everybody know that the new books are available on Amazon. I'll post a link in the description below. It gives a little bit of information to homeowners about different HVAC questions or problems that may arise. Give it a good read, give it a review, and let me know what you think. If there's anything else, hit me up in the comments as usual. Otherwise, thank you and God bless.